There is no way I can do this, film it and be safe. So this risk is not worth taking. I bought 3 fiber elephants from Nainital from a street vendor. I wanted exactly 3 elephants for this very specific DIY, and they're fiber, plastic, glorified plastic if I may say, but they have beautiful detailing on it, and they are, I thought, perfect for what I have in mind. Since I want an antique look for it, the first step, however, is change its color. This bedsheet is called DIY bedsheet. There has been hundreds of things that has been painted, sprayed and DIY'd on top of it. Someday I'll do a full reveal of how this bedsheet looks, but yeah, it has so many paint splatters and in so many different colors that it's beautiful. Someday I might auction it to a international designer to make a coat or something. Anyway, I'm using this gold spray. It's acrylic automotive kind of spray, and the first step is of course to shake it, and then I'm going to spray the elephants with a base coat of gold. This is a bright gold, it's not an antique gold, so they are going to look a little artificial, but we follow the process. It's a very gloomy and rainy day. It's a perfect day to do a DIY at home, but not so much to film. Here is the first coat of the gold. You can see the black has got a nice little sheen. It needs another coat, and then we will assess what we do next. While our elephants dry, we move on to the next DIY. Every state in our country has its own terracotta. Here are 2 terracotta pots that I got from a local store. And terracotta is so versatile, you can do so many things with it and make it look absolutely beautiful. This is the antique theme. So for this little pot, I have a very fun idea. I have this air dry clay. It's about a 1/4 kilo pack. And I got a mold that is generally used for terracotta jewelry. You can see it's got this little Lakshmi and swans in the sides. So I want to use this mold and get those designs and paste it on this terracotta. So that's the vague idea. I hope it looks as good as it looks in my head. Anyway, I haven't worked with air dry clay in like 5-6 years. So the first thing, however, to do is read the instructions on the packet. It said that I should use a little bit of water in my hands while I knead the dough. And here I'm applying talcum powder on the inside of the mold so that it lets go quickly. And then it's a matter of pressing down my kneaded dough into the mold. Now, because I'm going to be sticking it to the terracotta vase, I don't want the back to be smooth, so I'm just using a palette knife and creating these ridges so that the glue has somewhere to hold on to. I covered the terracotta vase in some polythene because I need the design to be curved because it's going to go on top of the terracotta vase, and I don't want it to dry straight, and then it'll be a hassle. And then I'm going to place it where it is going to be stuck and push it along the curves so that it dries curved and not straight. This is 5 minutes from when I put the air dry clay in the mold. I'm taking it out. I'm pushing my finger from the back so that it smoothly comes out. You have to be really careful while pushing it down because while you want the piece to properly curve and take on the shape of the vase. You also don't want to push it too hard and lose the details of the mold. I realized I completely missed showing you the reveal of the molded piece. So here is me demolding the second one. It's supposed to be for a terracotta pendant. It has a Lakshmi form and peacocks on the side. It has fine details, but the very finer ones are missing, which I think at this scale is really not possible. But this is absolutely beautiful, whatever that it comes out. I want 4 of these around the terracotta vase, so I made 4 of them and fixed them around the curves, and now have to wait overnight. In the meantime, our elephants look something like this. Do you notice? I sprayed all of them with this gold, and each of them has turned out its own color. I should be mad, but I am not, because I sort of love this. Hindsight, maybe I should have washed the elephants first. This one looks kind of antique gold. The second one has a antique blue kind of a feel, and the third one is a reddish brown copper kind of look. That is really weird. Well, I guess it's not a DIY if it doesn't throw you some challenges. So here I'm going to use my favorite antique bronze acrylic color. It is a rich tone of antique bronze gold, and I'm going to dab it on the elephants to unify the color. I want them to look the same more or less. I'm okay with the undertone being pink and blue and gold, but on top I want them to look the same. So just using a sponge and doing a little bit of dabby. You can already see the very beautiful antique bronze color coming through. And I think we're getting to where I wanted to, where the top coat actually matches of all the 3 elephants, and then the undercoat is fine. We're looking more for a antique kind of finish. I think I'll get exactly what I wanted. Here is the final result of the antique bronze on top. You can see that it's still a little wet. I couldn't wait to show you. It actually looks like a solid brass piece, which I'm extremely thrilled about. And the colors just so beautiful, and all of the details that were hiding in the black elephant are now out. You can see all of those details well. And while the elephants dry, we move on to the third DIY. Here is a packet of handmade paper. This is one of those which has seeds and flowers in them. This is a pack of 10, and it's very affordable at, I think, 60 rupees for the entire packet. Back in 2019, I had done the same DIY with a similar paper, and I loved how it turned out, so I'm recreating this again. As you can see, the paper has some flowers, petals, and they have some very beautiful colors. It's got a green, pink, and this handmade paper is actually thick, but not very thick, but also slightly thicker than the regular paper that we put through the printer. The last time I tried this idea, I used coffee to antique the paper, and then I dried it and put it through the printer with a nice calligraphy print. But this time it really bombed on me. The paper got too flimsy when I brushed it with coffee, and then it refused to go through the printer, and I had to work on a plan B for this one too. I found this hand made calligraphy online on a blog called Artistry and Beyond by Vivek Johri. The link to his blog post is in the description. I wanted to initially print it out on this paper, but then it refused to go through the printer. So I printed it on a fresh piece of handmade paper, and my printer is out of toner, so it really printed it very light, which is what I wanted, which was wonderful. To really give it that antique look, what I plan to do is I plan to use the remaining coffee, which is really thick, and paint it on top of this calligraphy. I also found this Ganpati mantra online, which I printed on the blue sheet. Here I'm using the leftover coffee and using a regular brush and simply tracing my brush over this calligraphy. Like you saw, I painted the edges and gave it the vignette effect and splashed some leftover coffee droplets on it. Here I'm just going over some of the letters so that it has some dark portions and some light portions, so that it looks like it's aged over a period of time. And then I'm going to dry it and put it in a frame. I will let you judge this piece by what you see right now, but I have to tell you that this turned out so beautiful. When I showed it to my husband, he was like, it looks very, very beautiful. I want one of the Vishnu Sahasranam verses to be painted this way so that we can put it on our door. It's turned out really beautiful. I'm so proud of this DIY. For the Ganpati Stotra, I'm going to write over it with this acrylic paint marker. And then I will antique the paper and rough up the edges to give it the Tadapatra kind of a effect. Immediately after I finished writing it with the acrylic paint marker, I brushed it with the same coffee solution, a light coffee solution this time, so that when the acrylic is not fully dry, it's going to swell up in places. It'll not spread like watercolor, but it'll slowly swell up and give you that very natural old world kind of charm. I don't know how to explain it, but you'll know when you see it. Splattered some coffee again, and I have to let this dry. If you can afford antique things, and if you love antique things, you can go ahead and buy them, but that shouldn't stop you from enjoying antique looking things. And I put in that extra effort because my friends come home and they'll be like, oh my god, I really love this one, can I have it? And I'm like, yes, you can. And they display it in their homes proudly. So yes, it's a win-win-win for everybody. Now our Lakshmi amulets were ready. Now comes the part of sticking it onto the terracotta vase. I'm going to use plain craft glue, the Fevicol MR, spreading a generous amount on the back of the amulet, spreading it with my finger and pasting it in position. Now I waited 5 minutes each before sticking the second piece so that this one has a good hold, and then I used some tape to keep it in place. This needs to dry overnight so it properly adheres to the terracotta piece. It's the next day and time to take them off and inspect the piece. Because we are sticking the amulet on top of the terracotta vase and the shape completely does not adhere to the contours of the vase, there's going to be some gap. If you see the edges, you can see that it's been stuck. To get rid of that, what I did was to use a paste of wall putty and water and fill the gaps. You can see it here. Now it looks like it's fused and a part of the vase itself. For some reason I couldn't find the clip in which I actually applied the putty on the piece. If you want me to show you that process, maybe I can make a separate video on it. This dries really quickly, so it just took about half an hour, and then I simply sanded the edges to remove all the excess putty, and just before I painted it, I rinsed it underwater. I'm going to use Asian Paints Royale in gold and cover this entire piece with the same color. This video is already getting too long, so I will spare you the time. This is how it looks after being painted gold. You can see me saying hi. Next comes the part of antiquing it. I'm using again my trusted antique bronze color, and I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of that and dab it on the whole pot. It's just a lot of dabbing and smoothing out the edges if there is a rough patch, just to give it a different tone. You can see this is full gold and this is with the antique bronze. It's going to age it a little bit. The final result is actually like a oxidized brass kind of a feel. I'm going to take one last step and antique it a little more. I'm using a wee bit of black and adding some gold to it with my finger and just mixing it together. And not completely mixing it, I need some gold and black separately. Use it as a highlight on those raised parts. I'm just using my finger and dabbing it to just antique those and raise the details. It's a cloudy day, so probably I should take it to the balcony. You'll have a better idea of what I mean. Here it is where I dabbed the black and gold mixture, and this is the one without the black and gold. So you can see that the details are nicely raised when I do the black. And I'm using some of that black and gold mixture to dab on the edges where it tends to get a little more wear and tear. And once this is dry, this DIY is complete. Back to our 3 elephants. The idea with the 3 elephants is that I want them to be the legs, the 3 elephants to be the legs of an elephant pedestal. So the elephants facing away from each other at the corners of an equilateral triangle, and have a large bowl or a plate placed on top of it. I first tried this iron lotus tray, which I felt was slightly smaller for the scale of the elephants. Then my husband suggested I use the brass tray from Good Earth, which I already have, and I tried placing that on top. I like the scale of this, but I wasn't too happy with the brass on top of brass. Also, I want some of those gorgeous details of the backs of the elephants to be seen. And even though this can kind of look good, I wasn't too happy with this setup. Also, I used this Good Earth tray for a whole lot of things, so I didn't want to be stuck with having to put it on this pedestal. And I realized I also have a vintage Burmese lacquerware wooden tray, the color of which I instantly loved because the terracotta red and the antique brass of the elephants goes really well. But I wasn't very happy with the rim, that the raised portion of the plate, and also I wanted a little more detail on the plate itself. That's when I remembered that I had seen a plate in the Bangalore Hunt store, and if I could check if that works, then I think that could be perfect. So this is the plate from Bangalore Hunts. It's also a Burmese lacquerware vintage plate, and I like that the edges are a little more flatter than the old one, and the scale is perfect, and I think this looks perfect to me. Also, I plan to use this as a pedestal for Ganesha and for whatever that comes, so the structure has to be solid. So if you understand structural engineering, when you put something on it, the weight has to be distributed evenly on the legs. So here I'm trying to use my tulsi pot, and it sort of is holding up. It didn't budge. Next, I want to try placing a very large, heavy brass Ganesha on it to see if it holds up. And yes, that didn't budge either. So I think this plate is perfect, and we are just going to proceed with this DIY. I'm going to use some M-Seal. My husband and me went back and forth about fixing it permanently and not fixing it permanently. I want it as permanent as it can get, but he wanted it temporary, and finally I won. So I'm going to use a little bit of M-Seal. I'm okay if it comes off after a couple of months or so, but right now I want the pedestal nice and stuck to the base. So I mixed up some M-Seal and portioned it into 3 different portions. Fixed it on the elephants first. What I didn't show you is I've already measured the elephants and made sure that they are equidistant from each other, and there is a little bit of calligraphy on the plate which I wanted to face in between the 2 elephants that are in the front, and then I place the plate on it, and to give it some strength and push it down, I put the Ganpati back. And it's time for the grand reveal of all of the DIYs. I loved making these and they turned out so well. I hope you love them too.